Hello, everyone, and welcome yet again to another episode of I Didn't Sign Up for This, the show where we talk about all the things that we just did not sign up for.
What?
And hopefully a lot of other stuff as well. Anyway, Karri, how are you?
I'm good, Tim. How are you?
I am fine, as always.
Good. How are you feeling today?
I feel pretty good.
Yeah?
You know?
Would you say your energy is pretty good?
Yes,
Oh,
yes, I
good.
would. I would say that if I was, at some woo-woo conference.
Oh, come on. We all have energy, right? That's what I want to talk about tonight, actually.
All right.
I want to talk about energy transference. I want to talk about just energy in general. So, by nature, I'm a pretty high energetic, right? High energy person. Have a lot of energy. And I will tell you that over the last few months, I've been working a lot. I'm working on a new book. I'm spreading myself a little thin, right? And I set this goal about 30 days ago. Oh gosh, I guess it's probably been about 45 days ago now. But for 30 days, I would get up in the morning and instead of going to the news, instead of searching CNN or social media, I decided that I was going to go to a new media platform called YouTube. You may have heard of it. And
I have heard of that one.
Okay. So within this platform, there are millions of videos. And if you type in different topics, these videos pop up. And the topic that I decided I was going to focus on was motivation. And so every morning before I got out of bed, I would go to YouTube and I would type in motivational video and I would pick a video to watch. And I'll tell you, there were a lot of different speakers. Tony Robbins showed up a lot. I mean, I'm sure you could name 10 different speakers. The hip hop preacher.
Is that a challenge?
Yeah, do it. Let's hear it. No.
No. Although my favorite, I'll have to admit, my favorite is Mamie Brown's baby boy Leslie.
Oh, yes.
Les Brown.
Yes, I love Les Brown. Les Brown made me cry when I was brushing my teeth on more than one morning. He's good. So let me tell you what this did for me. So the first couple of days I laid there in bed and I watched the video. And within about 5 minutes, most of these videos, I'd pick between 10 and 15 minutes. I'm up between 5 and 5:30 in the morning. And I would pick a video between 10 and 15 minutes. And at about the 5-minute mark, I couldn't sit still. I had to get up. I had to get out of bed. And I had to get my day going. And I would grab my headset, put it on, and I would continue listening while I brushed my teeth and, made my coffee or whatever, let the dogs out, checked email. But I made a promise to myself that for 30 days, I would put that positive energy in my path first thing in the morning when I got out of bed. And it only took about a week, and I was getting up before my alarm. And I was jumping out of bed, and I was ready to go. Okay, well, I'm in my 40s, so probably not jumping out of bed. But I did notice an elevation in my spirit. I noticed an elevation in my physical capacity first thing in the morning. It completely changed the way that I responded to getting up. I was ready for the day. Now, that start to my day actually cascaded into my work, and I was able to get a lot more accomplished. I was able to help my team do what they needed to do. I was able to tackle, less than ideal situations and, in a rapid amount of time and an efficient amount of time. And so what I want to talk about is energy, because it was that positivity that created that energetic change in me that sparked the reaction. And if you step back a little bit and you compare what it's like to feel inspired or energized, and I want you just to compare that to the opposite. So what happens when you're around a person who's, hey, Tim, I'm just sad. I'm just bored. I need something to do. And that actually will bring your energy down. So I think it's an important topic. I mean, last week we talked about goal setting. I am a true believer in affirmations. I believe that you find what you look for and you get what you put out there when you put in the work. And you have to create a strong, solid, positive energy in order to have a strong, solid, positive life.
Okay. So all Eeyore from Winnie the Pooh aside.
I know.
I
did love Eeyore.
Okay,
I wanted to help him.
Well, I mean, it's fascinating. I love Eeyore too. Everybody loves Eeyore, but he does carry that archetype of like being very sad, being very slow and down. Here's what's fascinating, and I don't know if you know this or not, but this is a real thing. This absolutely happens on a regular basis. Big casinos will hire people who have very low or negative energy as they perceive it. And they hire these people to walk around and stand behind people who are winning, who are beating the casino.
What?
Yeah, that's a real thing. Is that crazy? Is that crazy?
Oh my gosh.
I can't remember what they call it. What's interesting is like there was actually a movie made about this practice starring William H. Macy. I'd have to look up and find the film. But William H. Macy was one of these guys. I can't remember what they called him, a sleeper or a downer or a something. I'd have to look it up. But William H. Macy plays the character in this film, and his whole gig is to walk around the casino when people are getting hot at the craps table, everybody's cheering and jumping up and down. He comes and stands and just absorbs all the positive energy and brings everybody down, right? He goes, somebody's on a run in blackjack, and you know, everybody's happy and excited and just looking for the next win. And he would come stand behind you and just like drown it all out. And like, I don't know if there's scientific validity behind that. I do know that those casinos do actually, at least as recently as maybe 5-10 years ago, did actually hire people to walk around and control the excitement in the room with their presence. So how do you like them apples? What about that?
Worst boyfriend ever.
No doubt. Can you imagine?
Yeah, I can actually.
That's crazy, but that's a thing. And so, you know, a lot of people, I mean, you know, earlier when I'm talking about how it's, you know, foo-foo, and it's like, yeah, if I'm at a Hay House convention, that's exactly what I would expect, right? Mm-hmm. So if Louise Hay is speaking and there's a bunch of self-help books, crystals and whatnot, you know, and so I kind of make fun of the kind of the foo-foo nature of that whole thing. I don't mean to sound cynical, critical of the notion at all. If anything, I believe in the vibrational nature of the universe on a scientific level more than anything, more than any theory or philosophy I've ever read in the quantum physics world has to do with the vibrational nature of the universe. Not necessarily string theory, but there's something going on with the vibrational nature of the universe. And vibration tends to find similar vibration. They tend to be highly attracted to the things that are similar to themselves, much the same as we are.
Mm-hmm. You know this, and I don't think our 15 listeners know this about me. Some of them might. Hey, Mom. Mom knows. I am a Reiki master. So I practice Reiki, which is, it's an alternative healing method. And it is all about energy healing, right? So it's all about cleaning and clearing a person's energy. Now, I'm going to tell you, I've been in the corporate environment for over 20 years, right? And with that, there's not a lot of room for Reiki practitioners to, you know, be in that arena. But I started reading about Reiki and I became interested in it when I met a girl in San Diego who practiced yoga and Reiki, and I decided to take the opportunity to go to a Reiki practitioner here in Phoenix. And so I went to Scottsdale. And I went with a friend of mine, and I told her she was the only friend I'd ever had a couple massage with, because we walk in and there are two massage tables side by side, and the house smells like incense, among other smoky substances. And I thought, this is going to be a joke, but yeah, I'm here. Yeah, I'll try new things. I'm not afraid. And so I will never forget this, because this is what sparked my interest in learning it for myself. I remember, so there are 7 chakras in your body, and each one of these chakras correspond with different mental and physical aspects of your body. And the heart chakra is right in the middle of your chest, right where you would think it would be. And I will never forget when this Reiki practitioner, when she moved her hands above my heart chakra, what that did to me. There was an emotional release. I actually started crying. I had no idea why I was having this emotional release, but I knew that it was good for me. I knew that it worked. I knew that there was something to it. And so, of course, being the inquisitive person that I am, I decided that I needed to study it. Well, it turns out that even Forbes magazine has done articles on Reiki. Medical News Today has done articles on Reiki. There are actually 60 different hospitals. I think as of 2007, there were about 60 different hospitals that actually had Reiki practitioners come and practice this modality on patients who were ill. And like everything, everything is energy based. I had a conversation with someone about a month ago. I met this guy for dinner, and we started talking. And I told him that I practice Reiki because I'm not your traditional. I mean, we all know that I'm secretly a hippie, right? But I'm not your traditional Reiki practitioner. Meaning, I have a corporate job where I make really good money, and I do Reiki. Really, it was to seek out a way to find my own personal Zen and my own center and balance my own energy. And I just kept studying it to the point that I learned it. But anyway, so it's really picking up. Like over the last 10 years, there have been multiple articles. I mean, you can go to Google and search out different articles on Reiki. But what that comes back to is energy healing. It's literally the translation of Reiki is all about life force and energy, your life energy. And it's a phenomenal thing to study. It's a phenomenal thing to witness. And I actually believe that we are all energy. And every time I'm with someone or you're with someone, there's an energy transference, right? So you will exchange energy the entire time that you're with someone and you're around someone. And that's truly why it's important to be around people that are uplifting and not people that bring you down, right? So that's a huge aspect that I think people tend to forget. Now, here's the issue with that. When you are a positive person and you're emitting positive energy, what do you think you attract?
Positive energy.
Do you? Is it possible, though, that someone who lacks that positive energy might try to kind of latch on?
Okay, so now you're getting to the notion of just like the needy, sort of sticky, wanton energy vampires of the world. And yeah, that is a thing. I've experienced that.
Yeah.
Like in the abstract, I think when you have that positive energy, you tend to resonate with more positive people.
Oh, sure.
But I do think that there are people, wittingly or unwittingly, I imagine most of them unwittingly, who are essentially the Eeyores of the world. Nothing wrong with Eeyore. I don't want to pick on Eeyore. They are essentially the Cooler. That was the name of the movie, The Cooler.
The Cooler. I'm gonna have to watch that movie this weekend.
But it just brushes over this thing that is actually a thing. They hire coolers to walk around casinos and bring the energy down when somebody's hot. It's just absolutely crazy. Nonetheless, I think that there are people who are attracted to, anything that might help them in any fashion to sort of bring them out of a very low vibrational state. And they will leech onto your energy to bring themselves up, and in the process bring you down.
I think that's fair. I think you have to protect yourself from that, though, because we know that we all have obstacles in life, and we know that we have things that we have to work through. It's a big puzzle, and the key to being successful and to progressing is to keep your positive energy intact. But there's a link between people. Have you ever met someone? Think about charisma, right? And so being charismatic, I'm sure you can relate to this.
Well, yes, I'm sure I can.
So as can I.
I can certainly help you with that.
So what is charisma? Charisma is an emission of energy that people respond to. Could we simplify charisma down to we're all searching for something, and when you meet someone who's charismatic, they're emitting an energy that your being responds to, and you're naturally drawn to that person? What do you think?
I think people in the abstract want to feel good. They want to feel good. At very least, they want to feel better. And I think they do respond quite favorably to someone who has what the French would call je ne sais quoi.
Mm-hmm. That's fancy.
Oftentimes we sort of, that's how I roll. That's how I roll. But, oftentimes that can be relatively interchangeable with just, certainly in social circles, with what we would refer to as charisma. People are drawn to it. They want to partake because they want to feel better about their life and better about themselves and better about everything and everyone.
Yeah, I agree.
Because, ultimately, the thing that we continue to get more and more evidence of, especially in the scientific field, is that people are inextricably connected one to another, right? Mm-hmm. We're absolutely connected. Well, it's the notion that you can feel someone who is staring at you. Can you feel it when somebody's looking at you?
Yes.
Okay. Absolutely you can. I don't know a single person who would not agree with that. But that is little more than an anecdotal type of evidence. And so there are a lot of people in the scientific field who would want to dismiss your anecdote and try to describe it as somehow they're in your field of view and you don't realize, or you're actually seeing a reflection of them in someone else's glasses or eyes, and I'm just like, look, dude, this is not a Mission Impossible movie where you can zoom in and enhance, right? It's like, I don't see that fool's eyes behind me because he's reflected in my tumbler. In my wine glass, I noticed that she was leering at me from directly behind. That's just, I just don't believe it, right? There is something that happens. There is something that happens when people gaze at us. As a matter of fact, there's been quite a bit of research done into the subject matter. And as of yet, there is no absolute conclusive proof, although there is proof of some other really kind of interesting things energetically that connect the past and the present and the future. Maybe I'll talk about that in a second.
Okay.
Because it's fascinating. We're all connected. It's all connected. We don't know how or why, but we know that it is. As far as the feeling someone staring at you, it's a universal feeling. Everyone experiences this. Everyone feels this. How many times have you looked up and turned slightly around, completely out of your field of view, to see that person who maybe has a crush is looking at you, and they avert their eyes very quickly?
Right.
How did you know? How did you know they were back there looking? So in some of these studies done as far back as the late 1800s is when this sort of came on the radar and people started looking at it. They found that a person could look at the back of your head and, generally speaking, people would feel it and report feeling that someone was staring at them. The person could avert their gaze by no more than 3 degrees, looking slightly left or slightly right, slightly up, slightly down, and the person would report, now they're not staring at me. Okay? Mm-hmm. And since there's no real money in knowing why this is how it is or how it works, there's not a lot of tests going on. There are not a lot of studies going on, since the 1920s or so. I think it got some funding way back then just because it was pretty fascinating stuff, but we never really found a way to monetize it, sadly. And so, we don't really look at it. The connection, though, is undeniable. People are absolutely connected. Somebody can walk in a room and you feel them there. Somebody can stare at the back of your head and you feel them staring. Now, they can't possibly be having a physical effect on the light in the room. Like, how could that possibly work absent just something we don't understand?
Right.
Absent some type of energetical connection that allows us to feel someone else's intent. And the only way we could do that is if we are in fact connected. And I'm a firm believer that we are. I always say there's only one of us here. On the whole planet, the whole human experience, there's only one of us, and it's you.
Yeah.
And it's me. People are so in love with the idea of autonomy. They're so in love with the concept of being their own individual person or personages or whatever. They want to be their own individual person so bad that they will eagerly ignore, even deny things like Reiki, which has, a 2,000-3,000 year history?
Right. Yeah.
They will ignore the studies. Okay, so here's the one that I was thinking about just a minute ago. This is a study done, I don't remember exactly when it was done. I'd have to look up the details. But I do remember the scientist, a guy by the name of Daryl Bem, B-E-M is his name. And he's a scientist and a professor at a major university studying in psychology and psychological connections of the human condition. So, and he was doing studies to try to determine if there is some connection between the present and the future. Mm-hmm. And so he did this really interesting study, and it went kind of like this. He brought 100 kids into a room and sat them down in front of a computer. Once in front of a computer, they were shown 40 words, one at a time, for 3 seconds each, that flashed up on the computer. And they were instructed that they were to try to remember the words as best they could. Once the 40 words had been shown, then he handed them a pencil and a piece of paper and said, now, write down as many of the words as you can remember. Okay? Mm-hmm. And so they did. And they were just nouns. Right? It was like house, car, tree, dog, bed, lamp, painting of a boat. I'm obviously looking around the room. Sleeping dog.
Sleeping dog, right.
Nonetheless, they were just 40 nouns, right? He just gives them these 40 nouns. Then the 100 kids stay in their seats. After they've taken the quiz and written down as many of the words as they could possibly remember, the computer goes in and the computer selects for each individual student randomly 24 of the 40 words. Okay? Mm-hmm. And they are invited to read those words off the computer screen and subsequently write those words down on a separate piece of paper, thus better committing them to memory, right? Mm-hmm. So what he found was in the control group, the people were not invited to write the words down, right? They were shown the 24 words after the quiz and they were gone. In the subject group or the test group, they were invited to write each word down. And so they compared the written word to the test overall. And what they found was that the people who had studied the 24 random words and written them down on a piece of paper, by and large, had also remembered those words on the test.
Okay.
Meaning essentially that by studying the words in a more vigorous manner after the test, they remembered the words that they studied better.
Interesting.
And how could they possibly know that?
Right.
They don't know what words are going to come up. They don't know what the 40 words are. They don't know what the 24 random words are going to be. And yet they remembered a preponderance of the words that they had written down later on the quiz itself.
That's interesting.
Meaning that somehow studying now improved their test score in the past.
That blows my mind.
Using this information, I had, Josh and Annie going through high school, studying before a test, taking the test, and then studying after again.
I'm sure they love that.
We did that for years. I kid you not. Josh, you call Josh right now and ask him, I'm like, did you used to study for a test after you'd taken it? And he'd be like, yeah, absolutely. Every time. Absolutely. Okay. Here's another one. A quick one that might make more sense. Might be a little bit easier to understand and a little bit spookier.
Okay.
He also did a series of tests, fascinating tests, but he also did a series of tests where essentially he sat people down in front of a computer screen, and there was a test group and a control group again. And he explained to these people, you are going to see images. You're going to sit down in front of a computer. So you had essentially a photograph of a curtain that if you clicked on one curtain, it pulled away. And if you clicked on the other curtain, it pulled away. Now, behind each of the curtains, left and right, one of them would have a photographic image of a blank wall. And the other one would have a photographic image of something else, a photo, like a tree or a dog or whatever, right? I'm doing it again because I almost said blanket. Comforter. End table. Empty water bottle. I gotta close my eyes when I do these things. It's so bad. So you would click on one of the curtains and it would pull away and reveal a blank wall. The other curtain would reveal a photo, okay? A photo of a tree or a river or a rock.
Right.
And they said, what we want you to do is try to guess which one has the more interesting photo, not the beige wall, but rather the bear in the woods or whatever. And people would try to do it. Now, when they tried to do it, they could not get any numbers above just the law of averages. It was basically 50-50. It was like 49.8% of the time they could pick the photo of whatever the thing was that wasn't the wall. Then they took the test group and they informed them that behind the curtain, they were going to see on one side a blank wall. But on the other side, they were going to see a picture of two people engaged in graphic consensual sex. Okay.
Wait, where do you sign up for this experiment?
Exactly. That's the point. That's the point. Because we are these sexually driven, sexually motivated creatures,
right.
Generally speaking. It triggers our emotions and it motivates us and moves us to pay much closer attention to what's going on or be super hyper-focused. It changes our energy, if you will, right? When you start talking about intimacy like that, it changes our energy because we're primordially drawn to it on at every level.
But even that itself is evidence of the need for connection. The fact that we are connected, right? That in itself proves the point.
Absolutely, it's a thing. So, but it gets more interesting because here's what happened. What happened was, now that people were anticipating a graphic sexual image. When they clicked on the curtain, they could get the image of graphic sex 53.5% of the time.
What?
Okay. Yeah. And time again, repeated tests, all the stuff that we do in the world of research. 53.5% of the time. Now, 53.5 to 48, 49.8. Right? 49.8 is within the margin of error. That's 50-50.
Right.
53.5 is outside of the margin of error.
Right.
That tells you something is going on. What was more interesting than that is that while the computer, this was a few years ago, computers were considerably slower, while the computer was selecting and loading an image of graphic consensual sex, the people who were being tested in the study would pick the sexy picture before the computer even knew what it was going to pick.
That's crazy.
Before the computer even knew what it was going to bring up on the screen, these people were picking, one curtain or the other, just sure that that was the one that was going to be the juicy one, right?
That's crazy.
And it is. It's absolutely crazy. I'll put in perspective for you exactly how crazy it is. Because, you hear, pretty close to 50%. You hear 49.8 and you go, well, that's pretty stinking close to 50. And you hear 53.5 and you go, well, that's also pretty close to 50. But it's really not. Let me show you how far off that of 50% of the time that is. 53.5% represents more confidence in something going on that is, for lack of a better word, paranormal. We can say with greater confidence that there's something really, really bizarre going on, and even name it after the scientist and call it the BEM effect, because we're hitting it with more confidence than adding calcium to your diet increases bone density. Okay?
Oh, man. Yeah.
We are more confident that those kids were having extrasensory perception type of experiences than we are confident that adding calcium to your diet increases bone density. We are more confident that they're having extrasensory perception or paranormal somethings than we are adding aspirin to your diet. As a middle-aged guys take 81 milligrams of aspirin every day because it reduces heart disease.
Right.
But we are less, even though that is so prevalent, that is the science is settled. We know that for a fact. That came in at like 52%. At 53.5% on a broad array of aggregate testing like this, we are absolutely sure that they knew psychically what the computer was going to choose and what was going to be presented based on the emotions they had around human sexuality.
That is crazy. I've had some experiments of my own, right? Like when I used to.
You're experimenting with juicy photos?
No,
what are you saying?
No, not anymore. No. What are you talking about? No, I do have to tell you that I have done some energy experiments in the sense of, bringing things into your life based on what you put out there. Okay. So I have to tell you, after I bought this house, I was still commuting into Chandler to work. So it was about a 45-minute drive. Well, that gave me ample time to start listening to books. And of course, what I prefer are these types of books on energy, books on motivation, books on leadership. Like I really, really enjoy listening to these books. So during the course of, I think it was shortly after I bought the house, and I had to go in 5 days a week right after I bought the house. So I was on the road an hour and a half a day, give or take. And I read a book by Pam Grout called E Squared. Okay. And in this book, there's 9 energy experiments that you can do. And I think it's funny because I was so shocked by what you were telling me, but yet deep down I know I'm not surprised by the outcome because I believe in the methodology. I believe that in the energetic materialization of the things that you want, right? I believe you find what you look for. And so anyway, I was reading this book and each chapter is an experiment on playing around with energy. It's actually a really fun book. I listen to it often. I kept it. She wrote a second one called E Cubed. I will go back and forth. As a matter of fact, this is kind of sparking the thought process that I'd like to read it again. But the reason that I enjoy this book is because they're individual energy experiments. And give me an experiment and tell me something can't be done and I'm going to test it. Because it's just something that it's a drive in me. I want to prove it for myself. And so one of the experiments, you're really going to enjoy this. So one of the experiments was you ask the universe for a gift, or you ask a higher power for a gift. And you don't necessarily need to define the gift. You just say, I'd like a gift. Okay, I want something delivered to me within the next 48 hours. And it's really just very basic experiments to get you to understand that energy is a real thing, and what you desire can materialize if you, number one, if you believe you can have it, and two, if you put in the work. And sometimes the work is just believing that you're going to receive it. I also believe in working very hard, right? Like that's something that I disagree with to some level with The Secret, right? Like I don't think that if I just sit in my home and wish for the universe to send me a man, I'm going to have some guy knock on my door. Because I've tried it, that didn't work. However, so I love this book, right? So I was driving my truck into work and I was like, okay, all right, let's test this. So I paused the book. I'm like, all right, Pam Grett, let's see what you got going on. And so I said, all right, universe, I'm here. Hey, it's me, Karri. How's it going? I'm here. I want a gift within the next 24 hours. I don't want 48 hours. I want 24 hours. Within the next 24 hours, I want a gift. So I go into work, and later on that afternoon, one of the girls that I worked with in operations, she comes over to me. She's like, hey, how are you? And I said, I'm really good. How are you? And she said, I'm good. And she said, hey, this is going to sound really weird, but I have this really cool lotion and I bought two of them, or I bought one and I got one free. Do you want this? And I was like, are you sure? Like, it's like a really nice, face oil or face lotion or whatever. I still have it as a reminder. And I said, are you sure? Like, you don't need to give me that. And she's like, I'll never use it. And so why don't you just take it? I just want you to have it. I'm like, oh, thanks. And I turned around and I went to walk back to my desk and I've got this. I'm like, that's really cool of her. And I went, oh, there's my gift. Let's do this again. So I brought the oil home. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the gift. Like, this is the gift I asked for. Thanks, universe. Hey, it's me, Karri. I just want to tell you thanks. And so I go about my life, go about my day. And then I decide I'm going to test it again. So I was like, you know what? I want a candy bar. I would like a candy bar delivered to my desk. What kind of candy bar? I don't know. Like, how specific should I be? Like, I don't know what kind of candy bar. You know what I want? I want a weird candy bar. I want one that isn't like your normal, like, Hershey bar, Reese's. I want a payday. I want a payday bar. So I put it out there. Okay, so I put it out there. The next day, I was running around my offices like a mad woman. I had meeting after meeting. I was solving problems. I had all this stuff going on. And in the afternoon, we had an operational review. Well, an operational review is where you basically stand up in front of your leadership and you talk about your performance. You talk about what you're doing and how you're driving the bottom line and how you're reaching your goals. And you talk about your metrics and all of your contributions. And it's pretty taxing. Well, here it is. It's supposed to start at 1 o'clock. It's 11:45 in the afternoon.
That is a tough day.
Or in the morning, not the afternoon. 11:45 in the morning. I haven't eaten anything. It is. When it's 11:45 in the afternoon, you've had a rough day. Anyway, so I'm out on the floor. I'm doing something. And I come back to my desk. And I'm not kidding you when I tell you that there was a box of payday bars left on my desk. I have no idea where they came from. To this day, no clue, but there literally was an entire box of payday bars, and I'm all, the universe loves me. I asked for a candy bar, and I got a whole box. But you know what I did? I didn't have lunch that day. I didn't have breakfast. I didn't have lunch. I hadn't had anything since about, 5:30 in the morning, and I was exhausted, and I had to get up and, do this complete readout. So I sat down, I opened up the box of candy bars, and I sat there and had a payday, and it gave me the energy I needed to get through the rest of the afternoon. But it's just so crazy because I looked at everybody. I was like, where did this come from? Nobody knew where it came from, but there literally was a box of payday bars. Now, logically, I know that somebody put that box of payday bars on my desk. Somebody walked in unknowing that I was like, I want a payday bar. Universe, bring me a payday. And I got an entire box. And so it's interesting because now I'm feeling that energy. I'm feeling that excitement because we're talking about this stuff, and like, I'm ready to do those energy experiments again. And they're phenomenal experiments. And one in her second book, she talks about, for people who are religious, I'm not trying to be off by any means, but she was like, what about turning water into wine? I was like, oh, that can't be done. Well, actually, it can be done. You just have to believe that you can do it, right? And I've never tried that because I'm not quite there on the whole belief thing. So it's a progression, right? Like you have to believe in what you look for, and you have to believe that you can receive it. And so, it's obviously the energy and the things that we do. It's a progression. And I thought, oh, that's so far fetched, but isn't asking for a payday and getting a box of payday bars the same day, isn't that a little far-fetched?
Well, when did you actually ask for the paydays?
I asked for them that morning on the way to work.
And so anyone who delivered the paydays, if they're delivering them at 11:45, would had to have purchased them before they came to work.
You would think.
And so they knew you were going to ask for the paydays, according to Dr. Bim,
before I asked for them.
Before you ever asked for them.
It's crazy.
They would have to.
It's crazy. It's crazy. I mean, but that's so, and I know that this is a crazy topic, right? Like this is something like what we've never talked about before, but ultimately what it boils down to is energy is a very real thing. And the connections that we have with people and the way that we feed off of each other, for good or bad. Right? Like you're with your friends, you're having fun. I went out to lunch with a bunch of girls that I'm friends with on Monday, and we were laughing and we were talking, and one of my friends brought me flowers because it's my birthday month, and it was just so sweet because I usually buy myself fresh flowers, and I told her this. I said, it's so funny, Jody, that you would bring me these flowers because I always buy fresh flowers for my home. I love it. And since the pandemic, that's just been a priority of mine. I'm at home 98% of the time. And so I enjoy having fresh flowers, and I usually get them in my grocery pickup. That morning, I literally thought to myself, I didn't put the intention out there. I literally thought, oh man, I put my grocery order in last night for pickup and I completely forgot flowers. I have no fresh flowers because the ones I got from Trader Joe's after my horrible date, were gone. And I thought, oh, I forgot these flowers. And so I pull up to this Mexican restaurant in Chandler and I go in and there's this bouquet of flowers sitting at the table at my chair. And she had purchased them for me, and they're pink, and pink's my favorite color, so it was kind of cool. But I told her, I was like, I can't believe you brought me flowers. I always get fresh flowers, and I completely forgot. And it's little things like that I just find fascinating. It's a real deal, though. We are all connected. Our thoughts, our emotions, our consciousness, everything that we are creates our reality. So if you can leverage that, to your advantage and create a better reality than what you have today, whether it's listening to motivational videos or motivational content first thing in the morning to get your energy to a higher level, or it's asking the universe for a payday bar.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's the product of we are a slave to our paradigms, for better or worse. You talk about your problems with the concept of the secret or law of attraction stuff. And there's a lot of people talking on that subject because there is some common thread among people with the subject. You go back to Earl Nightingale or Vic Conant, one of them, who did the recording, the greatest secret in the world, which is you become what you think about most. And so it's not like we just woke up and started talking about this, today. We've been talking about this for 100 years that we know of. And I think we've probably been talking about it before then because there's no way to record it more, over 100, 150 years ago. Nonetheless, we're a slave to our paradigms, which means you can't sit at the house and think, oh, I want a man or a payday and expect it to just show up both. A man who has a payday on a regular basis, I'm sure that would be good for you too.
That'd be a first.
I'm just joking, Joe. Don't take it so seriously.
Joe's pissed.
It's just a joke, man. Come on. You know what you did. You know what you did. We sit around the table at Thanksgiving, just laugh about your ass.
That's so horrible.
I don't see any of that. I don't see any of that hair growing back in either.
bless his heart.
Anyway. I just gonna laugh it out. Laugh it on out.
That's what happens when you're not specific about what you want.
That's it. And names have been changed to protect the innocent. But Joe's not innocent, so no reason to change his name. We know what he did.
Not much.
No, we're not going to get into that side of it. This is still a family show.
Oh, no.
Anyway. We're a slave to our paradigms, meaning that it's not enough to want for anything. If we believe we can have something, we take an action. I remember a very simple example of this that was laid out by a sales training years and years ago, where I was not training, but I was a student. I was a pupil in the sales training. And the guy showed us a picture of a tree of oysters. And there's probably, 100 oysters in the tree, not a ton.
Mm-hmm.
And he said, if I were to tell you for absolute surety that out of these 100 oysters, there are 2 pearls in the tree. There are 2 pearls in the tree of oysters. What would you do? Because the winners among you, you're going to glove up, grab that knife, and start shucking oysters. And at very least, you're going to feed yourself. But if it takes all 100, you're going to have these 2 pearls. And you're going to be able to add those pearls to your collection of treasure through whatever means, right? And so the people who don't believe, whose paradigm is such that I just don't believe that there are any pearls in there, don't look for them. They just don't shuck any oysters. They complain and whine about how life is unfair and they're being victimized by the system and the man's trying to hold me down, right? Which sadly is a very common tale these days. There are pearls out there, man. Pick up oysters, start shucking.
Right.
Take action to pursue the things that you want, believing that you will receive them, and you will.
Right.
Now that throws back to, 2,000-year-old scripture in the Christian tradition. That goes way back. Ask, believing you shall receive, and you will. And that just seems to be that's like a cheat code in the game of life. That's the cheat code.
I like it.
You've got to decide that you're absolutely going to receive the thing you're looking for, that the pearls are in the oysters, that the gold's in the mine, the diamond's in the river. Because without that, you won't look for it. You'll just decide that it's not there, and you'll look elsewhere or do other things. And so it's all about believing. It's all about walking by faith. Walk forward in faith.
It's true.
And you'll be fine.
So before we wrap up, I do want to talk. I know we've talked a lot about this, but I do want to talk about things that we can do to protect our energy, right? Because our energy is sacred. It's something. It's our life force. It's everything that creates the life that we want, and we do find what we look for, and we're connected. I think the key really is to make sure that you're in tune with yourself, and that you create a space to be in touch with your mind, body, and spirit, right? And that's something that's very, very important. And it does take that mindfulness. It takes the need to be conscious and make the effort, because if you don't create that structure and look for ways to protect your energy, and to seek positive things over negative things. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love a good scary movie on a Saturday afternoon before the sun goes down. I know that you like them after the sun goes down, which I struggle with, right? But, and so I know that, it's kind of fun to be scared. It's kind of fun to watch things like I love listening to crime shows and watching things like that. But you do need to balance with positive energy. You need to balance with positive content. If you're always watching content that's negative, if you're always watching the news and you're not balancing with some motivational videos, or you're not balancing with some affirmations or meditation or something to get you centered and get you grounded, then you're not going to be balanced. It's going to be lopsided. And you don't want lopsided, because nothing lopsided can move forward. And then ultimately, I will tell you, for me, when I moved out into this desert, in the middle of the desert, where I have very few neighbors and beautiful sunsets, and the stars at night are just absolutely magnificent because there's no light pollution and it's just quiet. Like, sometimes I go outside and wonder if I can still hear, because there's just nothing. And I created a sanctuary. I created a place where my energy could be free, and I had this ability to create as opposed to absorb. And we are here to create. Right? We're here to create a life for ourselves. We're here to create an existence, create relationships, create bonds, create intimacy with people, create all the beautiful things that life has to offer. And in order to do that, you have to have a creative space. And so those are some of the key things that I just wanted to touch on. And I don't know if you have anything to add to that. It's really being in tune and trusting yourself, trusting your intuition.
Depending on whose science you choose to believe, we have been kicking around the planet for a couple of 100,000 years to as little as maybe 6,000 years. I'm a proponent of the couple of 100,000 year story, at least. I think a couple 100,000 years is underestimating how long we've been on the planet by a reasonable margin. Nonetheless, a little bit of recreational anxiety in our day and age is not a bad thing. And so if you want to watch the scary movie, watch the scary movie. It's a way to essentially keep your endocrine system in pretty good health, create a little bit of cortisol, create a little bit of epinephrine, and just enjoy the process of being anxious about things. We've not always been on the top of the food chain. And there are two ways to prove to yourself that you haven't always been on the top of the food chain. The most common of which is our capacity to look into the hedges or look into the texture on the wall and see faces, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
You do that, I do that, everybody does that. And that is a lingering ability that has been with us for a very long time, back when those hedges might actually contain a saber-toothed tiger. And so we developed this ability. We developed the ability to very quickly recognize eyes and a nose and a mouth, because the mouth might come and eat us at some point, right? And so we do have an endocrine system that's built for a creature that hasn't been chased by a saber-toothed tiger in a very long time. And so what we do is we become tense. We have problems because of our inability to basically burn up the energy that we create through things like cortisol and epinephrine, other hormones that we get. And to go out there and just to sit there and pretend that you're walking down the stairs in the creepy basement, even though you're not, right? It allows you to exercise the body effectively.
Yeah, I know that this is a very different topic from what we've talked about, but tying it back into all of the things that we've talked about so far about going for our goals, you have to believe that you can achieve something, and you have to be in a space to create it and make it happen. And the only way to do that is through positive energy. No one with negative energy ever really was super happy about accomplishing their goals. And I know that sounds silly, but you have to have a positive outlook and a positive energy in order to propel yourself forward. Well, I think that wraps us up for tonight, unless you can think of anything you want to add, Tim.
No, I think we've covered it pretty well. I think there are a lot of really interesting things going on here, and one day we'll know exactly what they are. But in the meantime, you do have to cherish your own energy as though it were a gift.
Absolutely.
You have to take care of it, because there are people who, through no fault of their own, through no intention of their own, will absolutely bring you down. They will absolutely stop you in your tracks in terms of accomplishing hopes and goals and dreams, because they'll challenge your paradigms.
Right.
And there are a lot of times family can be the worst at doing this.
Sure.
Right? A lot of times your siblings or even parents will tell you how unrealistic your hopes and dreams and goals and ambitions seem. And there are a lot of people in the world, and most of them we feel very comfortable just making a vulgar gesture to and walking on, right?
Sure.
But our parents and our siblings, we tend to take very seriously, and we crave their love and respect. And so when they show up and just because they've had a bad day tell you that you ain't ever going to sell any copies of that book, she's probably right. I won't write the book. It's like, that really sucks. And so, yeah, take care of yourself and steer clear of people who can't help you get to where you want to be.
Exactly. And until next week, dream your life.
And live your dreams.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.